and maybe we'll see if we can address some questions and answers, Q&A, since we have time to do that. So,
nice job, Clark.
I guess I need to stop my screen sharing to see that. So I grabbed a couple of questions, and I'll send this one to you, which is a question about the inductive rollers. Someone asked a question: how does the inductive roller work? Can you maybe spell that a little bit more, Mark?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. So this this new inductive media roller system has been improved, and so what the inductive media roller system does is that the two let's see if we got a little, maybe we got the camera here. There's two rollers there's two sets of rollers, and so when you're loading media, the two rollers create back tension. So regardless of the weight of the roll, that back tension is being adjusted based upon the weight of the roll and how it's moving through the printer. And so it has to do with two different rollers that are used to pinch the media as it's pulling through. Like Clark said, if you want to really dive deep into the various aspects of the printer, Clark had mentioned that with Epson P series, if you go to epson.com / the model of the printer, so Epson, for instance, P7570, P9570, P7000, P8000, P9000, that will take you directly to our product page. And our product page has got all of the information and or the links to get to all the information that you need regarding the printer. So everything from our sales resource guide, which is actually more of a technical guide of all of the different features that are in the printer. So we talk about in depth, well, at least with a slide, more of the aspects of how the inductive media roller system works. We talk about the printhead, we talk about the ink system and all of that. So it's a nice little handy PDF that you can download. We also have a way that you can get a print sample. So you'll see a link for getting a print sample done, as well as at the bottom, resources where you can go to our support site where you can download that combo driver. So yeah, Clark was right. It's a long URL, but if all you have to do is just go to epson.com / and then the printer model name, and it'll take you directly to that to that page. So yeah, the key to the inductive roller system has to do with this back tension that creates the right amount of tension so that there's less skew issues, and it moves the media really precisely through the printer.
And Mark, I wanted to mention something about Black Enhance Overcoat that I wanted to point out. You know, I know there's a couple of color sophisticates on this session here, so they might have this question even if they don't know it, which is the Black Enhance Overcoat is only intended really for glossy media. It won't buy you much on or anything on a matte media. And I built some profiles on kind of like semi-matte media when I was doing some work. And I found an L-star, the black point had an L-star value of 2, which is just amazingly dark. So I was like, what the heck can this black and black BEO what's it gonna do for you? Get a 1.5? But I don't think it's about making it darker as much as it is about giving it more of a kind of a wet look on really glossy media. Is that about right, Mark?
That's exactly right. And that's what I was trying to say. It almost gives you a Chrome look, if you're familiar with Chrome. It has this sort of rich, wet, dark look. And it's different than what other people are doing by using a flood overcoat or a chroma optimizer. It's mixing the gray ink with the black, but it's mostly seen on those glossiest of medias. In fact, in terms of ICCs, the profiles that we build the profile without Black Enhance Overcoat in our lab, and so when you apply it, it does change the overall contrast a little bit, which numerically you can look at the values, and there is a delta between using Black Enhance Overcoat and not, but yeah, just as a little bit of information. So yes, it's really only designed for and seen most with glossy media. In fact, with our media types, If it's a matte media, the option won't even be available. So it's really only available in glossy, and technically it's available in the sort of the semi-gloss papers or premium luster, but you're not really going to see a difference between the Black Enhance Overcoat on and off with a media like luster.
Okay, good.
So.
Hey, there's also one thing I wanted to add about the basket, which
Yeah.
is on the older Epson printers, the basket looks like this with this little wire frame thing. And watch me kick it. Oh, bummer. And I can't tell you how many client sites I've gone into where I've seen that exactly on the floor. It got destroyed somehow. This system. Let me see if I can show it. It's just more robust. It's off the ground, so there's really nothing for you to kick, and it's just you showed the features about it, pulling it out, and that's great and stuff. But my biggest complaint had been that it's just not that robust, and they get broken a lot. This one looks like it's gonna last a lot longer, so I consider that another enhancement feature. Yeah,
we took that to heart, so we redesigned it, and it's designed to be much more robust, that's for sure, and to just function better. So we definitely heard those comments from users.
So here's a question: how does it handle non-Epson media? I use Canon's polypropylene about as often as I use Epson matte.
So I think the key with third-party media, I'll say, is that for one, a great tool to buy is a micrometer, because you want to know the thickness, or unless you know the thickness of the media. And then it's also important to know what the base type, do some tests so that the base type matches up. Meaning, if you're using a Canon on an Epson, there's probably not public data that you would know if the Canon media used, the film media type that we have in our Epson print layout. But if you did your own, ink testing, and you found that, okay, this is the right base media, an Epson media installer, you can copy that base media, you can rename it, and then you can enter in the precise thickness of that media and any other parameters that are available in Epson media installer. And then now and including an ICC. So if the manufacturer, well, in this case, Canon's not going to have an ICC for an Epson, but if you built your own ICC, you can plug it in there. Yeah, and you can really kind of engineer your own workflow on basically any media that's, of course, aqueous pigment compatible. But yeah, you could definitely dial in that third-party media exactly right. But I think the key is paper thickness for sure, because each individual media model has its own parameter in terms of thickness, and the unit is millimeters, so it's not in mils, but you can easily do a conversion between mils to millimeters. But you enter that in right into Epson Media Installer, and then whatever name you give it, I mean, it'd be kind of, it's like it could show up right in the front panel of the printer in Canon polypropylene. So it's definitely possible to use a wide variety of third-party media.
Okay, here's another question. Does anything change in the way the plotter interfaces with a RIP like GMG Color Proof? I'll take part A of this, and you can take part B.
Yeah.
I've done some installations for this printer with a RIP, the Fiery XF RIP, which uses Epson provided screening, and the installation went hunky-dory. It was very much like doing a P7000 or P9000 installation, quite similar. So I think that experience is essentially the same with the EFI family of RIP. But GMG uses its own screening, and that might add a degree of complexity or sophistication that I don't feel like I'm in a position to talk to at this moment. Have you been working with GMG on this family of printers, Mark?
I have not, but that's only because of timing. What I do understand as product manager is that each individual RIP vendor, what we call an ISV, a software vendor, they have a special website that's connected with Epson Seiko Japan that they log into, and they can get information, regarding accessing print modes and all of the algorithms that's in the print driver, our screening technology, and all of that. So in terms of changes, it is a different printer compared to previous generation. So I would be up to date with the contacts in Epson Seiko through the ISV website login, and make sure that you've got the latest and greatest. I do know that we're constantly working on improving the algorithm and making sure all of the print modes. Matter of fact, I know we're even working on a print mode specifically for proofing that has to do with the P7570 and the 9570. So yeah, definitely I would encourage you to reach out to.
That question came from my buddy Marco, and I'm happy to do a call with you and GMG to delve into that question in a little more detail, which is probably the right thing to do.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Here's a question that when will the accounting app be available for the Mac on OS X? I think I'm gonna pass that one to you, Mark.
Yeah, no, I totally, I'm with you, and it's in the request list from product management, and saying it publicly like this is great. Definitely take that to heart. So I don't have an answer. I wish I did, but I don't. Although, it's pretty easy to pick up a PC. It's not an application that requires a lot of bandwidth or anything like that. It connects via the printer driver and pulls the data straight from the printer itself. And it's really handy. As a matter of fact, Clark, when you showed it, one of the things, you don't have to necessarily have imperial. You can also, metric. You can also switch it to imperial. So if you want, square feet or something like that, you can switch that over. But it's super handy. You just put in your parameter, what you paid for ink, you put in the parameter of what you paid for your roll of media, and then each individual job that you send, you can make an individual report based upon a time frame, so the previous month or the previous 6 months or the previous day or whatever, and it will give you a list of all of your print jobs, provided that you have the information in there for the cost. That's something you do have to do. So you do have to kind of program the cost, because street costs, depending upon reseller.
One of our customers, we can help you through that. I went through it. It was pretty straightforward, but we obviously know the cost of everything we sell, and we can do a remote session, get you up and running with that if you're so inclined.
Yeah. But thanks for the feedback. Super appreciate it.
So there's a question: does the new plotter use a new generation of Spectraflow? And my belief is no. The existing Spectraflow is the ILS 30. I guess it's called the UVS ILS 30 is the most up-to-date Spectraflow, so that works fine with this printer.
That's correct. Now, if you do have an ILS 20 because you have an older Spectraflow with the ILS 20 head, you can just buy the ILS 30 head itself. So that is something that you can do if need be. But the actual hardware itself, the chassis itself, has not changed.
And then there's a question about printing sheets and rolls. I think the question was, can you leave the roll on the printer while you're printing sheet? And the answer is yes. It can't be in the paper path, of course. So you have to remove the roll from being inside the paper path, but it can still stay up on the top of the printer.
That's exactly right. That's the caveat. So you would come on, like right now, it's actually loaded. So I would cut this sheet, put my print away, and then I would say unload, and it basically comes back into the loading mechanism. So I don't have to take it off the printer itself. I can kind of leave it in here. Matter of fact, that's what the little window's for. So you can actually see if you have media, not necessarily loaded, but media that's in the printer itself, and then you can load a sheet in. So you can kind of seamlessly go back and forth between sheet and roll, and it's a pretty easy and a pretty straightforward process.
Okay, and I feel like that's all the written questions I've seen so far. Oh, there was one about the 7890, but I think maybe since that's kind of something about the
delamination of the printhead.
Yeah,
I saw that. I would say that this new printhead is more robust than previous generation printheads, and although you can't guarantee that you're not going to get delamination, I would say that it's not. Yes, it's much more advanced. It's much more evolved. It's much better than previous generation, and I think the overall printhead health in general is something that we took seriously into consideration. So the whole entire robust design from from not only protecting the print path itself, but the new printhead design, the nozzle verification technology, the waveform technology that Clark was talking about. All of those things are going to contribute to the life and the health of your permanent printhead. So
I recognize we're at the end of our allocated hour for this. I don't know, Mark, can you stay on a few more minutes? And is it possible to like turn off the mute for everybody? And there might be people who just want to voice some questions. Is that an option?
Is that an option? Let me check. Aaron, is that an option for people the participants to have access to audio? Because this is Zoom webinar, so we haven't actually had that question yet.
Good. I'm glad I was the first one to ask that question.
Huh?
So if
no, so that users could ask a question. Oh yeah, just raise your hand and then we can allow you to speak. There you go. So if you do have a question and you'd like to speak to everybody, you can. You don't have to, of course. You can type it in if you'd like. But if you want to say something, you can say something, and then Aaron will let you. I don't know how to raise
your hand. How do you raise your hand?
You go to the attendee
participants.
Yeah. But let's see, I wonder if people are seeing that. They may not be able to see that. So. Yeah, actually you can chat maybe and say, I'd like to say something, and then we'll see your name, and then we can actually
send a question.
Yeah.
Try and think if there's anything we can vamp about. Maybe you can take a minute to talk about piezo technology versus the competing thermal.
Oh yeah.
From Canon and HP.
Yeah, it's really it's an interesting discussion, because really at the core of inkjet printing, that difference between piezo and thermal is huge. It's huge, and there's advantages to both. Okay, but the advantage to piezo I can speak to first. So piezo printheads do not use heat. They use a tiny bits of electricity to vibrate a piezo thin film. It's almost it's in the form of a crystal. It's incredibly small, and that vibration causes ink to be pushed out of the nozzle. But because it's done via electricity, the precision that the ink can get pushed out of a nozzle and then fired onto a substrate is incredibly precise. It's incredibly accurate, and that is something that is super, super important to inkjet printing. Matter of fact, that's one of the things that when you look at an Epson print, it just, especially for those discerning photographic tastes, and you're really you almost want to look at the print and not even see the technology, right? It just the photograph should just be, the content should just speak for itself. And that micro piezo technology does that. We can print with a very, very small droplet of ink. 3.5 picoliters is the droplet size. It's a unit of volume. Canon has a higher 4 picoliter. So that 5.5 picoliter difference is actually quite substantial. But that precision and that accuracy, that shape of the dot is super important. On the thermal side, thermal uses heat. And so it's the heat that gets generated inside of the printhead is extremely hot, and it causes the ink to form like a bubble and get shot out almost like a shotgun, microscopically speaking, out of the printhead. But microscopically, what that produces is not as precise of a dot. And so that's something that can have an effect when you're actually looking at the print. Plus, the print head itself is, because it uses heat, it's not designed for the life of the printer. It winds up being a consumable. So if you do purchase a Canon or an HP, yes, you can switch out your print head, and okay, that's an advantage, but that's also a cost that you have to constantly take into consideration. And so those print heads have a lifespan, and that lifespan is dependent upon how many prints that you utilize, how much coverage is going on to the substrate, and all of that. So two very, very different technologies from the heart of it. And so yeah, it's something to definitely consider.
I'll also add my take. The Epson is the piezo, and Canon HP are thermal. It's a bit of a Pepsi versus Coke kind of thing. Mark did a good job of explaining the Epson viewpoint, which is it's kind of just a more precise head, and it lasts the life of the printer. With thermal, it's a consumable. On the flip side, and this is a fair point, is if the head gets clogged, it's a couple $100 rather than to get a new head, rather than the substantial expense if your printer's out of warranty of replacing it in the Epson. And so we've often guided people who are doing infrequent printing to a thermal head, so they can, if it gets clogged, they can swap it out. I just want to emphasize the point. One of the nice things with this next generation of printers is you can do some of the maintenance to repair your or maintain your head that wasn't available previously. So it really, in my mind, it makes the piezo head a more robust long-term solution as you're doing some maintenance that might be required that wasn't available previously.
Exactly. It's actually being maintained continuously without really doing anything. And so when you do go to
print,
print,
get a clog, you can clean it yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's even, that's if the clog is so bad that you have to do that. So that's a last resort, but you have all of those at your disposal. So
previously you'd have to bring a tech out or something like that. And even if you're under warranty, it's a hassle to bring a tech out if you're in the middle of a busy production period. So this self-maintenance thing, I think is a pretty important enhancement with the next generation printers.
Yeah, anecdotally, like you said, in my experience with having, a unit to constantly test, it seems that there are less clogged nozzles, and it's something that that I think, like I said, it has to do with the overall design change of the printer itself, which is greatly contributing to any particulate matter getting into the print zone. That combined with the auto nozzle verification technology and such, that's super key. So, all right, good.
Okay, well, I think we're good to go, Mark. I don't see any more questions, so hopefully we've answered the vast majority. And I'll repeat that we're going to follow up by sending you all a link to the YouTube video when it's up there, in case you want to review it. So
yeah, we really appreciate you being here. Right? Thank you very much. Thanks, Clark.
Thank you, Mark. All right. Cheers.
Cheers.